I've been told that the Latin Mass has more grace than the Novus Ordo. Seems silly to me, but is there anything to that claim? I have not seen anything to that claim, and I don't think that that is a tenable position. Um, Respectfully, I know some very pious and holy people uh, recently have said that, and so I mean, I would respectfully disagree and say that I don't think that's a tenable position, and I think it tends to undermine the church elsewhere. The church, by implementing the ordinary form, is implicitly saying that it's on par with this extraordinary form. By implementing these reforms, it's implicitly saying that. It doesn't explicitly say that to my knowledge, but it's implicitly saying it's on par. I'm not aware of anything saying that there's more graces that come from the extraordinary form. You would have to argue that by reason, because there's nothing in the church magisterially that's going to back that up. You would have to argue that by reason, but I would argue by reason the exact opposite. I would argue by the church putting its approbation on the ordinary form, that's implicitly the church saying that this is on par with the liturgy prior to the reforms. And if it's on par, it's going to have the same amount of graces, um, at least potentially, right? Potentially. More, more importantly, though, if we're going to now talk in the realm of more graces, here's a problem that I'm going to have to uh, present to the Latin Mass community. As much as I appreciate the Latin Mass, if we're going to talk in these terms, here's a dilemma for you. For nearly 1,000 years, the Catholic Church communicated infants. It gave infants the Holy Eucharist for nearly 1,000 years. And it was pretty much by accidental circumstances, by an accident of history, that it went away. In the Latin Rite, that did not go away in the Eastern rites for the most part. In the Latin Rite, it was pretty much an accident that it went away. Um, Now you might say, well, infant communion is not necessary for an infant's salvation. Baptism is what's necessary. I agree. I agree. It's infant communion. The Eucharist is not necessary for their salvation. They're already saved through baptism. Um, but that's not what the Eucharist is for in their case entirely. It's not to remove their original sin and bring them from a state of deprivation to a state of being in communion with the new Adam, as Trent puts it. It's the Eucharist is more than that. It helps divinize the individual. Not that there isn't already some divinization there through baptism, but it increases it. And there are extra graces that are given in the Eucharist that are communicated to the infant that are not given in baptism. So it's nourishment. It strengthens that individual. It gives them extra graces. And so I wouldn't put it in terms of, well, what's the big deal? These infants are already saved. Yes, they are. But it's kind of like saying, oh, I'm baptized. I'm already saved. I never need to receive the Eucharist. I can, just, hey, as long as I don't commit any mortal sins, I'm good to go, right? Technically, if you don't commit any mortal sins after your baptism, you're not going to hell, sure, but that's not exactly the point. There are other graces that are available through the Eucharist that you need to be, um, using, that you need to take advantage of. So my point is this: we have been given these graces to infants in the Latin Rite for a very long time, for nearly 1,000 years. I mean, as late as Aquinas's age, they're still communicating infants in the Latin Rite in some places. So as late as the 1200s. By an accident of history, it stopped in the Latin Rite. Does that mean that the Latin Rite, especially as it is expressed in the Tridentine Mass, is depriving infants of grace compared to the, say, Latin liturgy in the 9th century. If we're going to talk in terms of one offering more grace than another, I'm going to ask that question. I know that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask the question: is the Tridentine Mass depriving infants of some graces that it previously didn't deprive them of? And does that mean that a pre-Tridentine liturgy was somehow superior or offered more graces than the Tridentine Mass? Now, I have answers to those things, but I'm just saying if we're going to put things in this category, in this realm of ordinary form has less grace than the extraordinary form, I'm going to say, wait, why is the extraordinary form, as understood, by Trent, why is that the standard? Why not the 11th century Roman liturgy? Why isn't that the standard? Why isn't the 5th century Roman liturgy the standard? Why are we assuming that the extraordinary form of the Latin Mass of the Tridentine liturgy is somehow the pinnacle and height of all liturgy? And why are we assuming that it's the height of the Roman rite to begin with? I would say these are questions that I would like to have answered, because I think they're very relevant when it comes to the discussion of which one offers more grace. Now, again, at the end of the day, I think that putting it in even in these terms is not very helpful, because it's gonna it kind of is saying, okay, well, the church isn't offering me what it used to offer as far as preparing me for um, communion with God, and I think that that would lead to some very serious problems if we were to adopt that position. And I think that when the Eastern Orthodox hear you say that, they're probably going to take advantage of it and say, "Yeah, man, look how bad this is. Y'all don't even offer grace anymore like y'all used to. That's why you need to come to us over here. We're not doing that to y'all. We're not playing around with the liturgy like y'all did." They're going to eat that up.